Our analysts again, we have Dr. Andy Smith from the UNH Survey Center. We have Republican analyst Mike Dennehy standing by as well. So first of all, we've covered the surprise third place with John Huntsman, but this is really tight for fourth with Santorum and Gingrich here. Just a matter of, I think at last check, a little bit like 59 votes, somewhere in that vicinity, separating these two in fourth. Any surprises there that it's coming down this close to those two?
Well, I don't think there's any big surprises, but the surprise going forward is going to be, what do the conservatives do? You've got the two conservatives here, Santorum and Gingrich, running at 10% each. You've got the conservative streak and Ron Paul. What are the conservatives going to do heading to South Carolina when you've got Mitt Romney running strong? You've certainly, clearly, Huntsman's on his way to South Carolina, so he's going to peel off some more moderates. But the 50% of conservative vote in South Carolina, who are they going to go for? Are they going to go toward Mitt Romney because he's got some momentum? Are they going to coalesce around Newt Gingrich or Rick Santorum? What's going to happen?
Andy, the other thing, too, is that all these other candidates, these conservative candidates can simply just say, that was New Hampshire, it was Mitt Romney territory, he was supposed to win there. What's your view about what happens next?
Well, I think the big problem, echoing what Mike was saying, is that for conservatives and for Republicans, if this becomes a race in the media between Mitt Romney and Ron Paul, that puts them in a situation to say, my gosh, do we want really Ron Paul to be our representative out there? Or, because these are Republicans first, not libertarians in these southern states, are they going to say, we're going to have to throw in behind Mitt Romney because Ron Paul is really what they don't want? That's the real problem, not only for the campaigns, but that's a problem for the Republican Party.
Okay,
try to define what is a real win and what's a problematic win for him.
And Mike Dennehy, the veteran of two McCain campaigns, your thoughts on that?
I think the national media is expecting a 15-point victory. I think they'll probably get that tonight because none of the big Romney towns have come in along the border yet. If he comes out of New Hampshire with a 15-point victory, then he's got the wind at his back on his way to South Carolina. The next story will be how much Ron Paul gets. Ron Paul is a serious candidate here, and in the 20s right now, again, after being in the 20s in Iowa, he's a force to be reckoned with.
Mike, on that note, not so much though in South Carolina, but then you've got the Gingrich factor that Romney is going to face heading into South Carolina. We already know that Gingrich is being backed by at least $3 million. You're going to have a new super PAC issue facing Romney just as soon as he gets down there. He clearly knows that more is going to be made about his tenure with Bain Capital. So he knows that, sure, this is a celebration tonight, but he's facing a tough stretch once things move south, yes?
A very, very big problem coming his way when $3.5 million in advertising is going to be just a tax. And what happens now is when you knock votes off Romney, where do they go? So are they going to go to Newt Gingrich? Probably not all of them. So who will they go to if they get knocked off Mitt Romney? Will they go to Ron Paul? I think this is something that has to be, analyzed. Is going to be, everyone's going to be analyzing it crazy over the next couple of...
But Obama, and whether the conservatives and the evangelicals are ready to coalesce around Romney or not. What do you think about the possible fight in South Carolina?
Well, remember, what this whole nomination process is to pick the strongest candidate to run against the other party's candidate. And how do you tell somebody's a winner? Well, winners win and losers lose. And right now, Romney looks to be, he's a two-time winner, a big two-time winner now in New Hampshire. That's going to go a long way in convincing those South Carolina voters that he's probably the guy for them to get behind. Momentum is a really important thing. And as we've had this front-loaded process over the last several years, momentum from the early states becomes more and more important. So I think we saw in 2008, John McCain was able to go to South Carolina and win there because he got the momentum out of New Hampshire. He wasn't able to do that in 2000. So the compressed calendar means momentum is more important, means it's more important to be a winner in the early states.
And Mike Dennehy, you have expertise in that South Carolina campaign of 2000 when, what was the term that it was called? John McCain got, oh man, I can't remember.
I try and put South Carolina out of my memory from 2000. Tom, I have to
refresh us, because it is a unique state.
It is a unique state, but I think it's important to remember two things. No candidate has ever won Iowa and New Hampshire, and certainly no candidate has won Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. Romney's, he really does have the wind at his back right now. And what he has going for him is 6 candidates still in the race. I don't know if anyone's getting out of the race in South Carolina between now and Tuesday. So the vote is going to be fractured. Mitt Romney's polling in the mid to high 30s down there. There just needs to be a coalescing around one other candidate, one alternative for someone to challenge Mitt Romney and for him to lose there. It's awfully tough to do.
You know, I'm wondering, too, gentlemen, if it can be argued, too, that the process here in New Hampshire went a long way in further vetting Mitt Romney, that even though South Carolina might bring a new round of challenging ads for him and new attacks from Newt Gingrich specifically, perhaps Santorum as well as we move on here, but do you think that it can be argued that, hey, it's all out there right now, essentially, we're really not going to learn anything more about him, he won New Hampshire with the voters knowing all of that, because that was just in the last few days. Do you think that will change the dynamic in South Carolina at all?
I think that's actually a critical part of this whole process. Mitt Romney needs to be challenged more. I think this has all been a good process for him. If he's going to actually be the nominee for the Republican Party, whomever it is, they need this challenge. They need this process because they're going to be so hardly tested against Barack Obama. I mean, there's millions and billions of dollars coming the nominee's way, and they're going to need to toe-to-toe against a very difficult Democrat. And so every step of the way they're going to be challenged, and now's a good way to get it done.
Let me ask you this, Andy Smith. There didn't seem to be quite the high level of advertising and spending here in New Hampshire this time around that we've seen in the past. And I'm trying to analyze it myself and say, well, it was that they wanted to say their war chest because they thought that Romney might have had this thing all wrapped up. So what are we going to see in terms of advertising in South Carolina? Do you have any feel for that?
Oh, it'll be much, much heavier. I think you're absolutely right. Here in New Hampshire this year, Mitt Romney didn't have to advertise. He was spending as much money in the last weeks of the campaign in 2008 that he spent this entire year in TV advertising in New Hampshire. He didn't have to, and the other candidates didn't have the money to do it, really. So we're going to not see that problem in South Carolina. The super PACs are really lining up to hit this. I don't think for Romney in particular it was so much that he was saving money. It's just he didn't need to spend it.
Andy Smith and Mike Dennehy, I'm going to fast forward a little bit if you don't mind. And let's talk about the very real possibility that come November, New Hampshire is a key swing state. What do you think about that?
We've been seeing that already in our polls. We've been matching up Mitt Romney against Barack Obama, Mitt Romney being the most likely Republican nominee at this time. He's been leading Barack Obama for really the last year. It's going to be a swing state, maybe not as important as it was in 2004 and 2000, because frankly this year President Obama is going to have to defend bigger swing states, I think, than New Hampshire, but this is definitely going to be in play.
New Hampshire actually, from Republican National Committee's perspective, is a battleground state, which will be one of the targeted states for the Republicans. And it certainly will be with what Andy said in the polling. Romney's been beating Obama. I don't know about the recent polling, if you had any, but it's going to be. I think it's going to be critical. The Republicans are going to need all the states they can get. So New Hampshire's 4 electoral votes will be important.
And of course, Romney had significant strength tonight in that southern tier, right along the Massachusetts border, where he is so familiar in places like Hampstead and Plastow and Hudson, all those towns that are close to the border and have a lot of people that commute every day into Boston. That really was the key, was it not, Andy, to his victory tonight?
Well, we got to remember that is the core part of the Republican electorate, the Republican Party in New Hampshire. It is those towns from Route 3 and 101 and south to the Massachusetts border. Democrats often call this area the Bermuda Triangle because it's where Democratic candidates go to die. And that is not really, we hear a lot about the Massachusetts people moving into New Hampshire and making the state more Democratic. What's really happening is that the Republicans from Massachusetts are moving into New Hampshire on those border towns, and they're familiar with kind of candidates like Romney, and they're voting for Romney in this election.
I think it might have something to do with taxes, don't you?
They tell us that actually in polls.
All right. You know, the other interesting thing that we have to look forward to that is an interesting side note to this is if the Governor Romney were to become president, would that make his house on Lake Winnipesaukee the new Camp David? The new Camp, or the new to retreat, Summer White House.
Summer White House.
What's your thoughts on that?
None of us are going to get invited. That's
a lot of votes on that lake.
You know, back to the issues, too, you know, we're going to start talking more about independents, of course, moving forward, and we're really going to start to analyze what brought them out. And if it can be argued, too, that this is more of an economy-weighted election heading into November, too, and New Hampshire is much lower with the unemployment rate. So if you think that they're voting in terms of economic issues, then you start weighing the two candidates as well. And you have to start thinking, Mike, that Romney would be a very strong candidate up here if you're talking specifically about a state, if it is a true swing state, that's more concerned about economic rather than social issues like the more conservative South.
No doubt about it, and I think that's why you'll see Barack Obama attacking Mitt Romney if he's the nominee on his record at Bain Capital. And you're starting to, we'll see that in the next week, of course, as we head to South Carolina. But your jobs in the economy is going to be a critical issue regardless of where unemployment is over the next few months. But Mitt Romney, that's why he's stressed his business experience over the last year in this campaign for president.
Right. I think this is a good reason when you look at a candidate, sometimes they have the right issues, sometimes they have the wrong issues that are dominating the campaign. And for Mitt Romney, being a businessman and having the background as being a governor, these are two things that really fit in well with his, for him in a year where the economy is the major issue.
In fact, if you take the 2008 primary, shift it forward a few months, the New Hampshire primary, Mitt Romney may have beaten John McCain on that issue. McCain came back largely because of the war in Iraq.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. Stand by. We're going to come back to you in just a minute.
Our analysts tonight, too, for helping us break everything down. Andy and Mike, you come back next time, okay?
We'll be back in November.
Absolutely.
Okay, you too. Thanks.